Hello, welcome everyone. We're going to now get started. Hello, welcome to HealthSource RI for Employers Broker Webinar. My name is Frances Fiat. I'm the Sales Manager for HealthSource RI for Employers. And I want to welcome all of you today. This is sort of a special edition we're doing from Boston, Massachusetts for our guest speaker. I'll be explaining about him in a few minutes, so just want to get a couple of things out of the way. Housekeeping items, we just would like to ask everyone who is logged into the webinar today to please mute your phones to avoid any background noises. We will have questions at the end of the webinar for anyone who would like to ask questions at that point. There is a chat line open during the webinar. Also, if you are on Twitter, our hashtag is #HSRIWebinar. You can feel free to chat through Twitter as you are doing the webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. The topic today is online referral and sales techniques to grow your business. First thing I just want to review is about HealthSource RI for Employers. To just let everyone know, we are the exclusive multi-carrier option for the small employer market. Basically, it's a large group benefit for the small group market, which is employers with employees of 50 or less. We have the full choice model where you can offer multiple carriers at the different metal levels to employees so that people can pick the plan that works best for them. There's no eligibility requirements around participation, and it has the defined contribution which allows business owners to control what they spend on their annual health care budget by having a set amount that they can give each employee, and then the employee can control what they are buying with that money by getting the plan that best fits for them and their families. So today, we have 617 Patrick with us. He is a social media guru. In 2000, he was the Vice President of Operations for a search engine that was Google's top competitor. In 2012, he won the International Speaker Competition for the National Association of Speakers. So we're very happy that Patrick can join us today to present the webinar on how to use social media in growing your business. So thank you, 617 Patrick. Take it away.
Thank you. And today we're going to start with a joke. Kid goes into a health insurance company looking for a sales job. He interviews with the VP of sales, and the VP of sales says, wow, your resume looks great, your background looks great. Is there anything special about you that I should know that wouldn't be on your resume? And the kid says, yeah, I'm amazingly quick at math. And the VP of sales goes, really? All right, what's 20 times 20? Kid goes, 752. The guy goes, that's not even close. And the kid says, no, but it's amazingly quick. No? All right. This is going to be the best referral system for healthcare that you don't know yet, using LinkedIn and social media. If you flip to the next slide, by the way, all these slides will be available for you at the end, and in the upper right-hand corner, each one there's a number, and that number will be the exact same number that will be on the PDF that you'll be able to get from my website online. The goal was to minimize the number of notes that you would have to write down. So just write down whatever it is that you think is useful or interesting for you that isn't on each of the individual slides. That way you minimize the amount of writing that you actually do. All right, on slide number 4, you can see that of the ways that you might use to get new business, typically referrals is the best. That is, if somebody recommends you to someone, that person typically trusts someone's recommendation more so than any of the other things on the list. Okay, here then is the newest, hottest referral technique that I have come up with. And it allows you to use LinkedIn, YouTube, social media, and all the modern technologies to do this as efficiently as possible. And one of the most important elements of this is that it minimizes the number of calls that the person who refers you ends up dealing with. In other words, if someone refers you, this is convenient to them. So on slide number 6, here are the different kinds of referrals. There are inbound referrals, and this is the best type of referral, where a prospect just calls you, says they heard about you from somebody else and they want to do business with you. However, if a person recommends you, you can always use that referral as an outbound referral where you call the prospect. And this, by the way, is much better if you use LinkedIn. On the next slide, traditionally the way that this worked is that you would have a happy client, and the happy client would give you the names of people they know that are prospects. And they call the prospect for you, or you ask them to call the prospect. The problem is that for one thing, that alone is inconvenient to them, but also today, most people don't answer the phone right away, so that if they call those prospects for you, then they have to wait for a callback and phone tag. If they want to minimize that, they have to type emails, and it all of a sudden starts becoming more inconvenient for them. And the more it becomes inconvenient, the more they begin to hate you instead of love you. All right, here's the way that you can use the power of LinkedIn to facilitate this. First of all, get a testimonial somewhere online. And you can do that either as a recommendation inside LinkedIn or as a video online. And I'm a big fan of video for reasons that will become clear a little bit later. Then, find a LinkedIn profile for a happy client. And I'm going to use a specific example of mine, and the client is a guy named Larry Reeves. Larry Reeves runs the largest inside sales organization in the world. It's called AAISP, and you may want to consider it if you're an inside salesperson. It's the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals, and I've done speaking at a whole bunch of his conferences. Okay. You can now look through his LinkedIn connections if you are connected with him, and I am. And of the connections that he has, and he has 5,000 to 10,000 connections, instead of having to look through all 5,000 to 10,000 connections, I can look for people based on search criteria like their title, their location, etc., so that I can narrow down the kind of person that would be a good prospect for me, and I'm going to give you an example of that. Then, I can use Larry's testimonial as a foot in the door, and I can do all of this without involving Larry anymore because he's already given me the written testimonial. Okay, if you take a look at the next slide, slide number 9, I show my LinkedIn profile, I show my LinkedIn recommendations at the bottom, including the one from Larry Reeves, where he says, Patrick has always given successful speeches, and he talks about a bunch of the sessions that I did for him. Okay. If we then look at the next slide, I'm going to show a pictorial view of what this looks like. On the left, that's me, and that's the picture that I use in my LinkedIn profile, and I am connected with Larry Reeves. That is, I sent him a LinkedIn connection, he agreed, or the other way around. You can do it either way. But Larry is also connected to thousands of people, and of the thousands of people, about 300 of them are VPs of sales. And there are specifically 3 that I show on the next slide of the few hundred that have the exact title Vice President of Sales. All right? They are Carl, Bill, and Bridget. And by the way, there are a bunch of others. Now, on the left-hand side, I then show that Larry wrote a LinkedIn recommendation for me. Here's how this gets cool. With LinkedIn, on slide number 11, I show that you can do a search for the title Vice President of Sales, if you look in the red box. And I can look just for people that are connected to Larry Reeves. So I have about 11,000 connections myself because I'm connected to most of the people that were in my seminars. Larry is one of those people, and instead of looking at all my connections and their connections, I'm just looking at the ones that are connected through Larry Reeves. And in the upper right-hand corner, I ask for just the ones that are a second-level connection to me, because Larry's my first-level connection, so the people that he is connected to would be second-level connections. And if I take a look at the next slide, after I do that search, notice that the top 3 people that are connected to Larry are Carl, Bill, and Bridget, the ones that I just mentioned. And these all had the phrase Vice President of Sales somewhere in their profile. Now, an important note. When you do a search on LinkedIn for Vice President of Sales, that's different than VP of Sales. And it's also different than VP of Sales within quotes, which is different than Vice President of Sales within quotes. So the searches that you do are important, and they're different in LinkedIn. In other words, when you look for VP of Sales, it doesn't just show everything that's close. It'll only show exact matches for those 3 words somewhere in the person's profile. If you look in the upper left-hand corner here, you'll see that there are 22 people that match that description. But you'll see a little bit later on that there are 300 people that Larry's connected to that are more like VP of Sales titles or VP of Business Development titles or Regional Director of Sales titles that would still be in my wheelhouse. This is very important to the audience that's on the phone right now. The reason is that your target, as I understand it, tends to be someone who could either be Chief Executive Officer, CEO, President, Owner, Founder, et cetera, and in some cases in bigger companies, maybe Director of HR or Director of Human Resources, et cetera. In other words, you also have an audience that has a variety of possible titles, and looking for one of those titles wouldn't be able to find the entire audience in this case. All right, moving to the next slide. What you now see is that I am connected to Larry. Larry is connected to Carl is just one example. And what I can now do is to contact Carl in the upper right-hand corner and point Carl somehow to a written recommendation that Larry Reeves has for me, or alternatively, I can point him to a video if Larry did a video about me. And there are a bunch of different techniques that you can use to implement all of that. Okay, moving to the next slide. When you decide you want to contact Carl, Carl being a friend of Larry, there are a whole bunch of options that you can use. One of the things that you could do is call, and I think that's the best option. Another is to email, and another is to send a LinkedIn invite. And all of these are much more complicated than we have time to get into today. First of all, finding a phone number for someone is challenging and time-consuming these days. But one of the things that you might want to write down is that there are a whole bunch of sites, including one called Data.com. Data.com is a division of Salesforce where you can, for about $1 a piece, you can get the phone numbers and email addresses for people based on their name and company name and a whole bunch of other search criteria. Buying in packages obviously makes it simpler. And just for you, I've done this. I've spent about $1,500 to $2,000 on this for myself personally, and find that there's probably an 80% accuracy rate on those people. And they cost about $1 a piece. So you can do approximate sales numbers for yourself. You can, right now, for $1,500, buy 3,500 connections. There are other options for doing this too, including a bunch of Google Chrome extensions that allow you to buy that contact information one at a time. So there are a whole bunch of ways to do this that'll save you time rather than going out and doing all the LinkedIn searches yourself. A lot of them, by the way, also have direct numbers rather than the number of the receptionist at a big company. Okay, so the first option I think you should use is to call, if you can. Also, this isn't described in the handouts either, but for people who are going to be calling large lists and doing large numbers of outbound calls, a lot of people don't realize that there is software available today that allows a small company to call a list of 3,000 people, for instance, by doing the following. Send out 3 calls at a time, knowing a lot of them aren't going to get answered. If the people don't answer, the software can automatically leave a voicemail, which is kind of amazing. If a person picks up, then the software will connect that person to the person making the phone call. And in the rare case where 2 people pick up at the same time, it actually does what I consider a little bit annoying, but it allows you to set up a message that says something like, hello, hello, I can't hear you, I'll try to call back. Fact is that with this kind of software, you can call up to about 130 or 140 people per hour if none of them answer. And if you've made cold calls these days, you know most people don't answer anyway. So the idea of being able to only field the calls where people answer can save you a ton of time. When I priced this 5 years or so ago, the cheapest way to do it was about $3,500 a month. These days, you can do it through a variety of places for about $150 or $200 a month. One of the ones that I've used is Mojo, but I'm not specifically recommending that. It's got a lot of problems by itself, and there are probably 5 or 10 others that all use voice over IP software, so they make a lot of this a lot easier. Okay, second contact option is to use email. And email sounds like the easiest, the least intrusive, and the one with the least embarrassment because you don't have to deal with people that reject you. The problem is that if you send an email to someone because you have their email address, but they don't know you, they can flag you as a spammer. And that can cause you and your company problems in the long term. We don't have time to get into that. Third option is to send a LinkedIn invite. And there's another paid option to send a LinkedIn in-mail, but we're not going to get into that today. Third is to send a LinkedIn invite, and this one looks like the easiest one, where you try to invite somebody into your network, and you sort of sneak in that you're a friend of Larry Reeves, and you sneak in that you sell insurance. Big problem with that is that those people can also flag you as a spammer, and if 5 people say they don't know you, you get put on LinkedIn's IDK list, or the I don't know list, which is a little bit difficult to get off. By the way, if you Google a solution, my webpage is the first match in a solution for that. Or if you send me an email, I can explain how to get off the IDK list. Okay, moving to the bottom of the page. You can use whatever text you're comfortable with when you call or email a person. But I think you want to make it quick and basically say that our mutual contact, in this case Larry Reeves, was extremely pleased with the work that I did. As you can see here, and you show either the recommendation or the video, and then you ask for 5 minutes of their time to see if you can help them also. All right, here's my cutting edge idea, and it's not rocket science, but I think it's a much better idea because it's more convenient and more genuine. Get the testimonial in a 15-second video instead of getting it online for your LinkedIn profile. This is easier to get because it only takes the person probably a couple of minutes to do it a couple of times and then send it to you. And it's also more convincing because now you hear in Larry's voice that he was happy with the work that I did. The difficulty then is, how do you show the person where the YouTube video is? And this gets much more complicated also because the person may not want the video to be public. They may allow it to be public, and there are a variety of ways that you can do it. One of the issues is that if you send a LinkedIn invite or if you use certain kinds of email, they don't allow you to put a link in it. Or in some email systems, if you send an email with a link, the target side considers it to be more likely to be spam. So here's a Google trick, because I come from a search engine background. Here's a Google trick. If you make sure that the title of your YouTube video can uniquely identify that testimonial, then you can just tell people to Google that title, and that's probably a faster way to get them to the YouTube video. For instance, if you take a look at the next slide, Brian Tracy, if you're familiar with him, he's a famous sales speaker. Brian Tracy gave me a recommendation. And I have it's actually a 40-second recommendation from him, and I made sure that the title that I made for it was Brian Tracy Recommends Sales Speaker 617 Patrick. Well, if you make that the exact title of the video, and then at the top the person says Brian Tracy Recommends 617 Patrick, then the video is very likely to show up very high on Google, assuming there aren't a lot of other people with your name and your recommender's name. Look, if you take a look here, in fact, there are only 2 matches above the YouTube video, and both of them are from my webpage where I show the same thing. In any event, this is another way to get people quickly to that recommendation. Okay, a little bit of bad news. This capability comes and goes in LinkedIn. In other words, it was available before January 2017, then in January 2017 it stopped working. And you actually had to pay LinkedIn $80 a month for something called LinkedIn Sales Navigator in order to do it. In September 2017, it returned. And it does work today, but you never know how long it's going to be there. Now, a lot of this, when you start getting into it, starts involving a lot of clerical work. For instance, I told you that Larry Reeves has 22 matches for VP of Sales if I look at his connections. However, there are 320 actual prospects that have titles that are similar to that, like business development, vice president versus VP, etc. So I knew from doing some searching that there were a lot of prospects there, and I had someone do the work for me because I didn't want to take the time. And if you take a look at the next screen, it shows the work they did for me. They literally went to 321 profiles and copied the name, then copied the company name, then copied the title, which a bunch of copy and paste. They also figured out whether or not the site was likely to be a business-to-business site. They copied the LinkedIn URL, and they also found the Twitter URL, which is a little bit difficult to find. Fact is that it was a ton of work, 320 entries, and if it took a minute apiece, that would have been 5 hours of work of mine. And it probably would have taken 3 or 4 minutes of work, so it's probably going to be 15 or 20 hours of mine. You would think that that would cost a fortune. I got it done literally for under $30 by finding someone on Upwork who would do it for $3 an hour. So I want you to consider that for getting rid of a lot of the clerical work like this that you might not want to do yourself. Okay, in wrapping up, summary, get recommendations from your happiest clients. Then use those recommendations to find potential targets that those clients are connected to and narrow them down based on location, title, etc. Then use those recommendations as an intro to get to their friends, in other words, to get to those new prospects. And use LinkedIn and YouTube to make it easier for them, in other words, to make it easier for people like Larry Reeves who give you a recommendation. Few additional notes. Ask for permission first. Obviously, don't do this unless Larry Reeves says it's okay, which he did. Another issue, some people will block their connection, so this just doesn't work, and there's nothing that you can really do about that unless you can make them unblock their connections. There's also, like any sales technique, there's no guarantee that this is going to get you business, but it dramatically increases the potential for you to get business. And lastly, if you do get business through Larry Reeves, give them a thank you somehow. I tend to send people a $250 gift card or some kind of dinner gift card or something like that to give them an appreciable thank you. Now, there's a lot more to this. If you want to find the actual handout, if you go to www.617patrick.com, which is my website, and then /PROV for Providence _2018.html. If you go to that location, it will give you a pointer to the handout so that you can download it. You can also see other things that are useful at my website. If you go to that website, you can also find my email address, which is pat@patricko'malley.com. You can send me a LinkedIn invitation, and on that webpage, you can also get on my monthly mailing list, which gives you a tip once a month about using LinkedIn or social media or something like that. All right? Thanks for attending, and if you have any questions, I'll take the questions now.
Okay, so this is Fran again. Does anyone have any questions for 6-1 Patrick?
617 Patrick.
617 Patrick. We'll also check the chat line to see if anyone has written any questions in. Okay. There's no questions on the chat line, so we'll, if everyone, he gave his contact information. If there's anything after, you can feel free to reach out to 617 Patrick. And also, so this is Fran Fiat, the sales manager again. You can also definitely reach out to me or Jocelyn, our operations manager. I want to let everyone know that our next webinar will be Thursday, July 19th at 12 noon. Our topic will be state-level action changing the insurance market. We always would like to hear your feedback about topics, suggestions for topics that you would like us to present for future webinars. We have these once a month, as well as items from the past. Also, if you want to get certified as a broker with Health Source RI for Employers, please contact Jocelyn. Her name and phone number and email are on the screen. She can be reached at 857-499-2068. Her first name, Jocelyn, Jocinlyn, period. Last name, HARDGUITTINI at nfphealth.com. And once again, my name is Frances Fiat. My direct line is 401-236-8009. My email is also on the screen if you have any questions regarding the sales for health, dental, employee benefits. Please feel to reach out. I oversee the business engagement team. I want to thank all of you once again for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.